Hey guys, in today's episode of the Centre Bounce, we're going to go through the Richmond 2022 review, how the team went during the season, who they picked up in the draft and the trade period, and our predictions for 2023. We're also joined by a special guest. Hope you enjoy. Alrighty, well, we have the big man Swizz. How you doing, Swizz?
Yeah, boys. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, I'm going pretty good.
Nice. So, before we kind of get into the Richmond review, do you want to just kind of explain like who you are, how long you've supported the club, kind of what you do in the community?
Yeah, no problem. So Swiz, involved with the Supercoach Insider boys. So yeah, talk a lot of footy and Supercoach a lot of the time. Probably way too much, my wife thinks, but love that. Heavily involved in cricket as well. Those who follow me on socials know I'm president of Parkfield Cricket Club in Noble Park, so that takes up a lot of my time. But it's awesome having a men's, women's, and girls, cricket club, and they're very big into their Supercoach as well. As I was talking to you boys earlier, we're heavily involved with that, and then the Richmond Forum as well. So we've got about 200 members of the Richmond member group who are involved in the Supercoach community, which is run by Abdul, but heavily involved in that. So yeah, that's from like the more my Supercoach background and outside of life, and then just from footy club. Granddad was a Richmond supporter, so probably I think my first game might have been when I was 6 or 7. So that's 3 decades ago now. A lot of pain, especially through my primary school and high school years and that. But now I got to see 2 of the 3 premierships. So it was all worthwhile in the end. So yeah, I've been a member of the club, was cheer squad in my sort of teenage years and that. So heavily involved there. Was actually in the board meeting before Benny Gell announced the 10-year plan. So we had some of the social group and influential members out there come in and have a chat about before they announced that. So that was really cool because obviously that's been the big blueprint that every club follows now, and to actually see that unveiled before it actually really happened, and actually sit there and talk to Benny and Peggy and those people before it was even announced. Yeah, that was fantastic. I still like the fact that Brendan said that day would never have games returned to Punt Road, and at the time I think we were playing games out at Cairns and that, and now we've got our AFLW and our VFL all playing at Punt Road and stuff. So haven't given up the dream to see an AFL game maybe against Hobart or Gold Coast or something there one day. But yeah, I'm glad the way the club's come along. So yeah, that's pretty well much me and supporting my mighty Tigers.
Yeah, I mean the last 5 or 6 years have been pretty good for you guys, right?
Yeah, well, pretty well much from like 2013. Everyone thinks sort of like the last 3-4 of the flags, but even 13, I think we were one. Well, it was a controversial decision against Freo where it cost us top 4. Would have played Hawthorn first round of the finals. What happens is we get knocked out in that Carlton game and that. But then in the next 2 years, like we got knocked out from 5th again. I think it was maybe against your boys, North Melbourne, and Port Adelaide, that smashing. So even though we didn't have the final success, it's probably been going on for about 10 years where we've been sort of 4th, 5th, and in the mix. So it's been a great decade to support the club. And, you're seeing 15, 16 wins a year. So, yeah, there's absolutely no complaints here.
Yeah. Would you attribute those kind of the rise of Richmond to like really good drafting or bringing key crucial players in? How would you kind of, if for an outsider, if you had to explain it to them, what would you kind of see as why they've risen to the point that we are now?
I think it's stability in the club for starters. That's the big thing. Like, and it's with everything. Like you see it with work. Like our cricket club's been the same. Like we've get a sustainable board and you grow from there with the right leaders. So that's when Brendan, Peggy, Damien came in, got some senior assistant coaches around them. So I think that stopped a lot of the issues too. And we went through all that situation where they were going to look at sacking him, and then the board spill was potentially going to happen. And glad that didn't go because the way that it could have, because the club's in a completely different situation. You back the people in, let them do their job because it doesn't happen overnight. The drafting helps as well because you had Koch and Dusty, Jack. They're all high draft picks, and we see it with a lot of the clubs. And obviously North, they're going through at the moment. The Bombers, with a lot of the guys that you guys have picked up, they take time. Everyone thinks, it'll happen overnight. Carlton, it's taken 10 years. and now they're starting to get that position and that. But yeah, just adding one high draft pick each year doesn't happen, overnight for the club. So yeah, it's been sustainable, and we've been allowed to, even though there's bumps on the road, head towards the goal that we wanted to head towards, and they've let the people that they've needed to do it.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and they need to build a statue. I think of Peggy O'Neill and her and Gail. I think these two, I don't know. When you think of well-run organizations and partnerships in the AFL, these two are well and truly up there, I think. And I have, you just have so much respect for her, especially now as she steps away from the club. I can only imagine just how, I think, emotional a lot of fans are who are diehard Tiger fans, and just how thankful they are for her service. How do you feel now with her stepping away?
Yeah, well, I think everybody has their expiry date as well. Not to keep harping about the cricket thing, but I've been in my role sort of 4 or 5 years, and I know at some point, like you start getting exhausted, and you need fresh ideas coming in and stuff. And as awesome as she's been, it's probably is the right time. Somebody now to build from what she's doing and kind of a fresh approach. But she's an absolutely fantastic woman. Like, we go to the London Tavern before games and that, walk over, and she'll walk over from her apartment or wherever she's living in there in Richmond and walks with the fans and talks to the fans and stuff like that. Like, you talk to other clubs, and there's some high profile CEOs and presidents that are good like that. There's others that you'd probably never hear from, and members talk and go, never seen them, never talked to him. But the fact that Peggy sits there and walks and talks with the members, and that just shows what a down to earth person she is. And Brendan, as I said earlier, inviting us in when he's always looking at new ideas. He's an incredibly intelligent person. He could run the AFL no problems tomorrow or do whatever he wanted. But to have somebody like him, the way he thinks, it's been brilliant. So you just hope the people around have learnt so much from him, and they can step in and bring some of those new ideas and take the club forward.
I've actually found.
And you're right about the statue. Yeah. Sorry, and you're right about the statue. Yeah.
I've actually found that a little bit with how Sonia Hood's kind of come in the last 6 months and so, and changed quite a lot, and maybe hasn't come from that football background, like a lot of admin and a lot of coaching staff moving into like a presidency type role, where the having even just people higher up in the business interacting with the fans and stuff maybe hasn't been something that's been well brought on and thought of by a lot of clubs, whereas now it's actually happening quite a lot more. And obviously she's kind of started that, like you're saying, and it's definitely having a big flow-on effect.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard because it is a big business, millions of dollars changing hands. But at the same time, these clubs have come from, working class people, you, me, I, everybody out there who, they've put their hard earned in. They turn up every week. We've all been there in the rain or the sunshine or the snow or whatever, and we're there supporting our club. We're supporting the reserves. So in the end of the day, you've got to have that mentality where you can still treat it like a local club would be treated, where you've got those diehard supporters and those volunteers. But at the same time, you've got to be able to balance that and able to deal with the corporates and all the money that's been turned around and stuff. So it is a hard balance, and to find people who can multitask and have the ability to deal with different personalities and different groups like that isn't easy. So hopefully, other clubs sort of take note and go, we've got to try to find those great people. And it doesn't have to be just here in Australia. Peggy's obviously from the States. So there's probably good people around the world who you can find who might get passionate about the game or and can still get them involved and find their skill set.
Yeah. And I know that I know a lot of clubs have started to look at, how they do the soccer and the NFL, that kind of thing, how those businesses are run, and trying to implement a bit of that in the AFL, something that we've been quite isolated in that respect for a long time. So clubs have started to look into that a bit more as well. Yeah,
for sure. And even like just the development of the women's game, like following the Richmond AFLW and what they're trying to do there. And we had a better season this year. I find myself, learning more of the players and getting involved more for those games now too. So that's just fantastic for, especially young girls going forward. They can, they've got pathways to go into, and that's just going to get bigger and stronger. So I'm really glad my my club's been involved in that.
Yeah. Did you get onto AFLW?
Your club's been involved.
Yeah, not from the start like a couple of the others naturally, but probably the last sort of 3 years or something, and then I think the VFL before that. But it's just good, like, and obviously Melbourne and the Bulldogs were the pioneers of that. But yeah, it's great watching those games and getting to those games. And even my wife, being an Essendon person, she's got down to the Essendon AFLW too, passionate about the men's, but it's another competition, but it just makes the club whole and that's like what we found even with our cricket club 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when we brought the ladies in. It's just completely changed the culture. It's changed the dynamics. It's changed the people you have as members as well. You've opened up more doors. So that's only going to be a good thing for footy, for men's and women's. You're going to open up more opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to, I suppose, the crux of a football team being the football performance on the field, making it not just a welcoming place for everyone to come in and work there, but also a welcoming place for your fans to want to come and actually watch you play and win. Okay, and I think that is a fairly decent way to sort of segue into how you guys performed this year that's gone past in 2022, and it was an interesting year, I think, for your guys. You finished 7th on the ladder. You had your 13 wins. You had a fairly good percentage as well. How did you see the 2022 season play out for you guys?
Might be one of the most frustrating years I've watched the footy, just because we were dominant in a lot of games, especially the first 2 or 3 quarters. I think Carlton first game of the year probably had that on ice, and Carlton and Cripps kicked 7 goals in that last quarter and ran over us. Saints ran over us in round 3, so that was frustrating. Sydney, I know we led, and then that whole Warner situation, I think it was, with the kicking the ball and stuff, but we still led that game at 3-quarter time. Geelong, we led by 19 points deep in the last quarter and still found a way to lose. So there was those sort of games, and then you had like the North Melbourne game and the Gold Coast game, which I was at, especially I was at the Gold Coast game. That was frustrating to head up and watch that. But so there's, we talk 8 losses, and there's 5 of them or 6 of them where we probably should have won. So you sit there and go, what could have been? Like, we could have challenged Geelong, had that sort of top 2 or 3 spot, and then you've got a different situation playing out in the finals. And I think a lot of people kind of forgot, we were in so many games and dominant, we just kind of ran out of gas. And that showed even in the final, like when we lost to Brisbane. It was the same thing again. So where we got in front, and I know that was a great game because it bounced back and forward, but we were in front with 40 seconds, 30 seconds to go, something like that. And again, just couldn't find a way to hold on or ice the game. And it was just our story all season. So the Freo draw again, like, after that siren and we're playing on, and a young kid makes a mistake, big deal, but it just felt like that all season that was happening. Your best win, I think like you got the Richmond Collingwood on there, and that was a really good win. I thought we played really well the Carlton game as well, second part of the year. That was a good one, but for me it was the Brisbane game, because we're down by 42 points, I think, and that was looking like this could be season over for us. And that second half, I think Cumberland kicked 5. I got a friend here from Austria, and it was her first game of footy. So I was like, the games aren't just normally like this. That's not how they play out. But to get over the Lions, who were flying at the time. And then I think from there, we went on and won maybe the next 3 or 4 games and got us into that 7th position. So, like the Collingwood game, Tommy Lynch dominated that game. Fantastic performance. But, if I had to choose the best, that Brisbane game was unreal.
Yeah, I always say, like, the best games, even if you lose, the best games are the ones that make your heart pump and you stress out, and half the time you don't want to watch it on TV, but your Supercoach players are playing, so you have to watch, But
my mate Grimo, who I go to a lot of footy, and my Supercoach community would know, I talk about him a bit. I'm pretty sure he wanted to leave at half time. I had to drag him in to stay. I was like, no, mate, we get 1 goal here. We could be all right. But it was a painful first half. But that's footy, it's the emotion of it. And when you actually come back and win like that, it's just, is there a better feeling? They're just awesome.
I think in that same respect as well, one of your better games was the ones against North Melbourne, where you didn't get the result you wanted, but just how impactful that game was. Going down to the last half a minute, how influential it was for the other team to kind of not have, break the losing streak, that kind of thing. So, maybe not results-wise the best game, but one of the milestone games of the year.
Yeah, and it was. And I was, with North Melbourne, I've got 3 or 4 North Melbourne mates, and they seem to always enjoy it when they play the Tigers because you kind of got the wood on us and that. But I think that was the changing of coach game as well. So I was pretty worried about that because just always seems to happen. And we always seem to cop it as well. So I didn't have much confidence for that one. And of course it played out, and North played awesome that day. But yeah, that was part of that sort of 3 weeks where we just couldn't find a way to win. So, and then, that going to that Brisbane game, and maybe it was just because we were so far behind, the pressure just came off, and then they just went out and played footy instead of, worrying about all the tactics that they normally would be, or the stress of, this game's going to be close, it's going to happen again. And then it just sort of played out the way it did. But yeah, it might have been the best thing for us.
That's what was surprising, I felt, as well, because when you think of Richmond, you think of this unrelenting, selfless, gut running all day, every day, like such great junk time runners as well. And the game's not over until it's over. It was so weird seeing you guys almost have like this mental fragility, a bit like Brisbane. Brisbane were quite unclutched this year as well, I felt, in a few situations. And it was really weird seeing that from Richmond, especially for many years. We've got this idea and perception of Richmond. So I can totally understand why it was so frustrating for you. What do you think it was, simply just due to not all of your stars being out there on the field at the same time, or was it due to?
Yeah, I think that hurts because obviously injuries and that, and you got younger guys, and there were some significant mistakes from some of the younger players in key moments. But I think Dimmer was trying to back them in because that's how they're going to learn. Sometimes you've just got to, let them be in those situations, and those mistakes happen. And as I said, Cumberland makes that mistake and then comes out and kicks 5 goals a couple of weeks later to win the game. So, you always learn more from the mistakes you make. So, yeah, I think a bit of that with those inexperienced guys. I think there may have been a change of fitness staff by memory. I'm pretty sure there was a change there. And I know we've brought in a new strength and conditioning person from St Kilda this year. So there were some, back of house changes, which obviously happens when you're up at the top clubs. The other clubs come poaching your key staff. So I think that might have affected a bit of that too. Like, you've got a new person coming in and maybe didn't get the kind of the fitness that you wanted. And we've seen that with other clubs like Burgess. Is how awesome is he? And I think he's over at the Crows this year. And we saw that, like, was it like at Melbourne, how fit he had those players. And then all of a sudden the D's stopped running out of games in the second half and that. And you're like, well, some of these people, I think they get undersold of how important they are at clubs. And I thought that might have been a bit of an issue with us.
Okay. Understandable. So I guess that moves us on then. I guess that was the discussion of the year as it was. And I guess we can now talk about what sort of changes that you've had to your list. You mentioned some of those off-field changes. These ones are the on-field changes that we've got here. That Richmond were one of the big talking point teams since that last trade period. And for good reason, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper both coming across. How excited were you when you're hearing the news of, Richmond and GWS are in talks? They could be getting Taranto and Hopper.
Yeah, so as I was saying before, boys, I'm a train driver, so I'm at Flinders Street a bit, and people coming up to me every day going, you think you're going to get Taranto? It's going to happen on that? And just the smile on my face, because I knew it was going to happen. I was just like, we're not going to stuff this out. We've got it. And then you added Hopper into the mix, and it reminded me kind of when we got Prestia and then Caddy for pretty well nothing on top of that. And it was just like, yeah, I can live with giving up a high pick because you just don't know what they're going to turn out and be. But you just know these guys are just fantastic, and they join the club. They start training, preseason training earlier than what they were supposed to. Timmy Taranto absolutely smashed our 2K time trial. I think he was just over a touch 6 minutes, and usually Campton McIntosh has a bit of a monopoly on that. So he's looking absolutely raring to go. And our biggest issue going outside probably the forward line, has been our midfield. Like Presti is an absolute star who plays 10 games a year. Unfortunately, Meatball's, built like sticky tape these days and that. So when he's out there, he's awesome. But yeah, unfortunately, he just can't. And then, you've got Dusty and Cochin, that they're aging guys, and some of those younger guys, like, you see there, Collier Dawkins, in particular, just didn't come on. Ross and Graham, they've had some injury concerns, and Ross hasn't been able to probably cement himself as well as he's wanted. So yeah, to actually fill the gap that we needed and fill it with two great players, and a bit different to what I know what your Bombers have been going through of those sort of small midfielders, like Hopper's 187, 188, and I think Timmy Taranto is about 189. So big, tall midfielders that come in, and can step up and really take. Well, it's great because actually they're kind of very different too, because Taranto's got the ability to go forward. There's been some knocks on his kicking, but just kind of the way we play, it's, rush, get the ball forward and that. So I think he'll fit the game style where Hopper's that big body tackle machine, and he will take a bit of that pressure off Prester as well in that midfield and any of the young boys that we run through. So yeah, to fix a hole with two guys, it's got me really bullish on what we can do this year.
Yeah, I know that, I think Geelong's been really good at it as well, but you would say maybe you've got a few players who are somewhat aging in different areas, and now you brought in two guys who are still, the ripe age where they can continue on and continue the premiership run instead of, having to go up and then go down again. So I really like the pickups for you guys. Do you feel like
I know?
Sorry,
I know. I was going to say, I know everyone's like bagging sort of the 7-year deal, but that's, I think, how it flows. Like, you think the next sort of 4 years, these guys are in their prime, and then they become your next sort of Dusty, Cochin, where then they'll be kind of heading on their way out, but then you bring in the next sort of guys in. But yeah, as you said, bringing guys in their prime, and I don't know if you want me to talk about those departures and that, but Shane Edwards, Titch, the sort of the fourth musketeer in that midfield, absolute legend, underrated for what he's done at the club. Kane Lambert, again, another really underrated player on that half forward flank. I think he's going to be really missed, more than what probably outside of the Richmond supporters would understand. So that's obviously disappointing. Caddy's coming in; he played his role, very important in that first premiership. Good mates with Prestia, and especially the ability for him to be that sort of tough nut in the forward line. So I thought he very serviceable for what he's done. Sydney Stack was disappointing, sort of not getting the best out of him. And the other boys, it would have been great to see Collier, Dawkins and Martin get a bigger run of it, but unfortunately not every draft pick makes it. And I think Collier's gone up to the I think he's up in the country this year, so wish him all the best, and hopefully those young fellas, they can play some good senior footy elsewhere, and never know, get another crack in the future.
I was surprised a bit with Arts. I thought he was a really good serviceable player. He was pretty consistent, and as soon as you had three, I thought he was probably one of the first ones to be selected. I thought he was a great depth.
I agree. I think that what's hurt him is Cumberland and Morris Rioli Jr. coming in, and it's just how many can you have? I know Castagna's a bit of a whipping boy for the Tigers supporters, but he's obviously, I think he's ahead of Arts of that, and probably gives us a little bit more versatility up there in the forward line. How many of those guys sort of can you play? Morris is going to be the future up there. And Cumberland's just one of those guys that came in and took his chance straight away. So I think they've backed those guys in. There's a couple other guys floating around in the Magoos. So yeah, unfortunately, somebody's got to get delisted. And I think when you look at the small forward area, you go, okay, we've probably got too many in that situation. Unfortunately, Jakey was the one that finds himself out.
Do you think if he was a bit better in the clutch positions, like that kick against North Melbourne, that he would have kept his spot and someone else had got dropped, or like that kind of sealed his matches?
Yeah, quite possibly in that. But I think Dimmer's got a more softer spot for Castagna. But I think it came down to there's one spot there, and you're keeping one of them, and that's just the unfortunate. That's the throat nature of footy, just how it goes.
Is there anyone else in that departures list that you thought maybe could have got another run? I know Matty Parker was a bit of a in and out player at some points. we talk about depth, that kind of thing. People talk about how Sydney Stack maybe didn't live up to his potential, like you were saying. Always felt like post Kebab Gate that he struggled to get back into the team, or like attitude and change, that kind of thing. Is that what you feel about as well?
Yeah, I think so. I would have loved to see the best of Sydney in that, and I feel like he could be one of those players that goes back, say, the Waffle or something like that. He'll probably go dominate for 3 or 4 years, and you may see him like Matty Parker kind of did. Obviously he'd been a bit of a journeyman, and went back to the Waffle, played some really good footy, got another opportunity. Didn't work out the way it probably did, but I think they've trying to now invest with some of the youth coming through, and though we didn't really have a whole lot of high draft picks this year, there's still the previous couple of years, we've sort of started to get some of those guys in. So I think there's a balance of, I don't like the term list clogger, but how many of those sort of fringe guys can you sort of balance out, where before not giving enough opportunity to the younger guys. And I think that's probably where the list balance is.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed, like with the rise of Josh Gibcus, for example, where your picks in previous years have done quite well, the key position players, that kind of thing. So this really felt like a year where you could spend a lot of draft picks to bring some key guys in, and not, sometimes when they try and do that and it hampers like a team's development because they've spent quite a few picks on getting guys in, maybe a little bit like what happened to St Kilda. So it's nice that, you've planned it out properly, that you can really avoid that happening.
Yeah, and I think like you even saw the emergence of like Tyler Sonzi is one that comes to mind. So that's where I think the balance comes. It goes, okay, yeah, Matty Parker might be dominating at VFL level more, but yeah, okay, he's probably more deserving of an opportunity in the seniors. But now is that taking the game away from Sonzi? And Sonzi's got the ability to be a big part of our future. So yeah, that I think they're the sort of list decisions, and unfortunately tough list decisions that you've got to make. Hugo Ralph Smith's another one that comes to mind as well. So yeah, it's just unfortunately, because I feel like we don't have the depth like we did on the premiership years, but there's some guys, player number 23 to 30 on that list that need opportunities, because you don't want to see them walking out the door to going to another club.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Makes sense. I guess speaking of young guys and giving them opportunities, we can talk about the new young guys added onto the list in the draft. Obviously, compared to other teams, this page is a lot emptier compared to some of the teams towards the bottom of the ladder. But for good reason, because we saw 2 awesome pictures on the previous page with Taranto and Hopper. So you picked up Caleb Smith, defender, with pick 49. You picked up Steely Green, inside mid, with pick 55. And then you rookie in the rookie draft, you selected Seth Campbell and Tyler Young. Given how late your picks were and how few they were left, were you happy with this? Or were these the sort of players that you were hoping that you guys would select with those picks?
Yeah, it's always a balance, because you're like, okay, could we then get some more like that mature age guys on that? But I'm really bullish about Steely Green. He's kind of my smoky for my super coach, for those people out there that play. They're 178 centimeters, so he's a bit smaller for an inside midfielder. But he once he came up from the Waffle reserves, he played the last game of the season. I think he played against Perth and got 31 touches. I think he might have had 7 or 8 center clearances in that game. So he played against the big boys, played in the final there as well, so for South Fremantle. So I think he's got a good possibility that he might see that sort of game time as that sort of 22 23rd player this year at some point. Dimmer does like throwing them in, and just because he's played senior footy, he was a world away during the COVID time, but you find that. But he's one of those ones that had a bit of a rapid growth. So for his size, I think he's definitely showed signs to get the best out of himself. So yeah, he's definitely one to watch. Caleb Smith, don't know as much about him. He's another half-back flanker. Maybe it's a kind of thought of either sort of what happens with Broad and Boston going forward in the next couple of years. Also, we've probably got a little flexibility there. Baker, Daniel Rioli, in short, they've got the ability to play other roles. So maybe that's sort of the thought there, that they like this kid, and him coming in is not going to affect us too much because we've got the flexibility to change things around. Can't tell you anything about Seth Campbell and Tyler Young, but wish them all the best.
I mean, Steely Green's got the name right, so you've got to pick him in
That's
Supercoach
awesome.
at least to start with. I remember when Phoenix Spicer came out and he was drafted, a lot of people had picked him early just because of the name, and they like seeing him on field.
No, I think
you've got a mixture of Steele and Tom Green. Is this guy meant to be some sort
I tell
of
you what,
inside mid?
I'm trying to work out how we recruit Tom Green next year because we've got no picks, but that's the next one. That's like he's granddad played for Richmond. It's all the talk on all the Richmond forums is, and the other one that's come up over on the rumor file on that, and I don't know, I haven't actually heard this talk to it, but I have had a reasonably good source. Apparently, we're very big into Ben King at the moment from the Gold Coast. He's 2 years out from a contract, and which would fall in line with Tommy Lynch and Dusty coming out of their big money. So there's just your little smoky there that I have heard on that we may have made an approach to his manager.
Yeah. I mean, he did spend some time in Melbourne recovering from everything. So, why not, hey?
Why not? I'll have a great. We've been successful bringing guys in from the club, so you never know. Go after the big fish, and he might want to come home by then. So, hey, if you don't ask, you don't get. So you never know.
Definitely true. Definitely true.
Nah, that's really good. And I think especially with Steely Green, from what I can tell, he just seems to fit the mold of a Richmond style player. In terms of he's clean with his hands. At ground level, he's got a bit of pace, so he likes to surge the ball forward. He's a bit raw, so he doesn't have that finesse ability, I suppose. But it just fits the mold of a Richmond style. And we're both big into our super coach, so I'm really looking at this guy, especially now that you mentioned it. I'm going to be looking at him.
Yeah, I don't think he starts, but he's one of those guys that we're going to end up getting in at some point. I think he'll be one of those trading options. Probably comes in and plays, 3 to 5 weeks, and then they'll give him these tastes throughout the year. It could be a case of if they're hopefully it doesn't happen, but probably when Prestia goes down at some point throughout the season, and they're like, okay, we'll put Graham in the middle, and then in you come Green, or and you can play off the bench. I can see something like that happening.
Yeah, I think that happened a bit with Hugo Rowell-Smith as well, right? And a few of those other players kind of came in that second half when you cemented or pretty close to cementing your list spot. Feels like Dimmer maybe likes to experiment a little bit more and give some extra time into these younger kids.
I think he just likes doing it anyway. Like if he sees enough out of you and doing the team things that he wants, which is obviously a lot of that defensive stuff as well, and playing the Richmond brand or style or whatever he uses in the press conferences. But he, I think, who we have in, like Gipkus last year, Bolter obviously came in very early in his year. Mansell's got some games there as well. Tyler Sonsi. So, and we saw when Cumberland came in. So, he's happy to bring some of these guys in at the expense of some of those other guys we're talking about, and give them an opportunity. So I would not be surprised if Steele is the one this year and gets these sort of 5-6 games and then builds on that over the next few years.
Cool.
And of course, we can't forget about Maurice Trioli Jr. as well. Big inclusion to the team and the excitement that he brings. And it's also no surprise that Dimmer does this. I mean, he was a player under one Kevin Sheedy, who used to love throwing the kids in there. So it's great for your fans to see what the next generation of Richmond Tigers is going to do, what they're looking like, get some development into them, whilst also being relevant on the ladder, whilst also being competitive, whilst also being a threat for the flag. It's something really rare to be able to balance both of these things at the same time. And I guess that sort of brings us to how that carries on to next year, how your team seems to definitely be stronger now. You filled this gap. You've improved the midfield by a fair margin. We've got you winning 12 to 15 games next year with a ladder position between 9th and 5th. It's crazy to think that Richmond could miss the 8 next year, but we just think that the competition is so tight next year with so many improving teams that we reckon there's 12 teams trying to fit into the top 8. Do you think this is a fair range, or are you more bullish about your Tigers?
Yeah, see, last year I was not as bullish, and that I thought like that range would have been kind of maybe a bit more spread. I had us kind of that 5, 6, maybe dropping as low as 12, depending on which way we're going. If we're playing a bit more youth or senior guys, and we ended up winning 13 and a half games last year still. So I think improving our list the way we've done, and if we can not have as many injuries as we did last year, I really do think it should be 14, 15, 16 wins. So mine is, I think, worst case scenario. I don't see us missing the 8, and I know what you're saying because there are teams coming up, but I don't actually think it's as close maybe as it was last year. I think North Melbourne, your West Coast, GWS, your Crows, Hawthorn, they all still struggle. So you've got 5, 6 teams probably out of it. And then there is a big argument of, what can Port improve, St Kilda, Gold Coast, that mix. And I think that's what you're talking about, those sort of 4 teams in that sort of range. But I don't think they've improved enough to catch up to what, your Richmond's improved with bringing in Taranto and Hopper. I think something's going to massively go wrong for us, for those teams to make ground. So I think probably Carlton's the big threat outside of the 8. But yeah, and you probably might find maybe there's only 1 or 2 changes each year as it is. So yeah, you're still going to be good enough to win those games. I think we've sort of been blessed. Round 1, Carlton again, and they've got every injury under the sun at the moment. So I'm very confident for the start of the season again. And then, I think if we can get off to a good start, and once Taranto and Hopper start sort of clicking with Nank in the midfield and that sort of synergy with the forward line, I think there could be kind of, if we get on a roll, a bit of momentum, a bit of confidence, I can definitely see maybe it could be higher than that. It could be 16 wins and that, and it might be, my ladder range might be sort of 3 to sort of 7, I think.
Okay, so turning around a few more of those games that we spoke about at the start that were really close, maybe lost in the last 5 minutes, turning those into wins.
Yeah, that's it. And as we said, like Geelong, Sydney, I think Brisbane, and even the D's game early in the year, we didn't lose those games by much, and that's not in counting like the Gold Coast and North Melbourne game. So yeah, if we probably had fit side last year in a couple of those games and probably could have ran out games, it could have been like, that sort of 16, 17 win last year. And I think we've improved. Like we played a lot of that year without Dusty as well, and I know that we can talk about that in a moment, but there's definitely, I think it's a lot to do with how fit some of these senior guys can stay on, or some of these young fellas like your Ralph Smiths and your Gipkis and Morris Rioli, if they can keep developing and put more pressure on, and maybe that the extra 5-10% that we need in those games to close them out and turn it into that sort of top 4 year.
That sounds good.
So do you want me to go through these? Where Taranto,
So you got Taranto, Hopper. They're going to lift. Then we've spoken a lot about them, but you got someone like Rewalt. We're talking about those senior guys. Can they stay fit? Can they stay on the park? You've mentioned Prestia quite a bit. There are some aging stars, and I think Rewalt is one of the big names. He's been such a stalwart for you in the forward line. How do you think he's going to do this year?
Yeah, he's the one I'm more worried about compared to your Cotchins and Dusties, that because we've now got the more midfielders to sort of cover them. But the Lighton thing, our small forward line, no problems at all. But it is that tall forward, like it is Rewalt and Lynch. So can Jack kind of, unless they've got some other plan with, Dusty or somebody else coming down the forward line and playing, or they're moving Bolter down there, or something left field. I'm a little worried because it's still a lot of load up there on Rewalt at, what's he, 33, something like 34. It's hard for a key forward to continue to play the way he does, and back up each and every week. So I think, he can still probably contribute maybe those sort of 35 goals for the year, probably maybe get his 2 a week, set up his extra goal. Like he's pretty good with those goal assists. But I don't see him playing, obviously every game now, and that it's going to get harder and harder for him. So it's more, what do we do to cover him when the structure doesn't change, but somebody can come in and play his role. And you would gather it's probably going to be his last year too. So does that mean we're going to be nursing him through games? I think the new sub rule potentially helps with that, because if you're up in games by a fair amount, hypothetically, like the West Coast game last year when I think we won by about 20 goals, you get up by sort of those 10 goals, you can go, okay, Jack, off you go. As long as we've had no injuries in the game, on comes a young fellow and he's only playing half a game or 3/4 of a game. So I think we're going to need a bit of that, and hopefully other injuries don't happen so he can, play those sort of 3/4 games.
Oh, fair enough. And our third point we had was, do you think Dusty can recapture some of his form in 2023, so the next season coming up? I know there's been some preseason talk about his fitness improving quite a lot. Do you see him kind of coming back to that premiership form again?
No, I don't. I'm nearly the worst Richmond supporter of this because I've literally just changed my Facebook profile, but I've had the Dusty photo up for the last 4 years. Those who follow me on Facebook know Herald Sun got a photo of me touching Dusty as he came out after the 2017. They were walking up to the ceremony. Pretty well got my arm around him and grabbing his medal and stuff like that. So I love the guy. But I was a little bit like, maybe if we could get his salary off the books and we trade him to Sydney or GWS and get, Tommy Green in. I wasn't against that. So, I get a lot of hate from Richmond supporters, like, you can't trade Dusty. How dare you and that? But yeah, the guy's been an absolute magician for us. He's an all-time legend and that. But can he recapture? Absolutely not. I think I could see him definitely playing that role in the forward line. It's going to be hard to stop if he's going to get the sort of third defender. Or do they then put the third defender on Jack and that? But I don't really want to see Dusty running around the midfield. I don't think he's going forward for the next couple of years. In a perfect world, I want him to be that sort of to-go-y guy, kicking, but more stay home, kicking sort of that 40 goals a year, and being that tough matchup. Because it's going to bring other guys into the game as well. Cumberland's shown he can kick bags now. So if everyone's worried about, they're going to kick it to Dusty and these other guys can free up, fantastic. And you hope the midfielders then don't get Dusty conscious in the forward line, like we can sometimes get a bit with Lynch. And sort of looking up and spotting up the other options as they're leading out. But I don't really want to see Dusty in that midfield unless it's, 5 minutes to go in a game and it's like, okay, Dusty, get in there and do your thing. But the time's gone for him not to be doing that sort of stuff.
I suppose that's where the inclusions of Taranto and Hopper coming in probably help bolster that midfield a little bit and take away the pressure to play him in there as well. So works out 100%. Quite well. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that brings us here now. I suppose your discussion, our slides there to a close. Thanks so much, Swizz, for joining us. It's been awesome having you on and talking all things Richmond, reliving some of those crazy times with you last year, Noah Anderson, et cetera, et cetera. But, there's been a lot.
That happened right in front of me too. Thanks, mate. That literally right in front of me at the game. I think I'm on the coverage too, where the people look for the Foxtel coverage, and there I am, just absolutely losing my mind. So, no, that was a fun day, and it's not the only time it's happened. That if you don't mind, it's the game where I think it was Grundy that kicked the winning goal about 4 years ago, and I think Bruce is going, it's Grundy, and that Darcy Moore kicks that ball in, and I'm on the boundary, absolutely giving it to him, and there's footage of him turning around and absolutely giving it back to me as Collingwood kicked the winner. So I don't have a good track record with this. I need to keep my mouth shut at footy, but it's not good. I'm sick of losing after the David Mundy, great career, but I'm glad to see the back of him as well.
I suppose that's the benefit of having courtside seat almost.
We did have Sam Lloyd, and I missed that one because I got married and that. I even said to my wife, I was like, I think the wedding was the day before, and I've gone, any chance we can go to the footy? We just got married, it's not going to happen. So no. And then that happened. I was like, that would have been great. Just we're kind of on the honeymoon, but hey, passionate
awesome,
Richmond man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
No, I
I
love having you on, man.
I guess before we head off, do you want to just tell us, I guess, where we can find you on the socials, that kind of thing, and like what you've got coming up as well?
Yeah, no problems. So Swizz26 on Twitter is probably the big one. And the Supercoach Insider boys. And we've got that with the YouTube. So I do my own podcast and then work with Benny Boy and Chris on there. So more Supercoach stuff, but I do happy to talk BBL or footy or cricket or whatever else people want to talk to about. Yeah, I've got the Insta and the Facebook. I'm pretty actually active on Facebook, and I'm usually not against adding people on there if people want to chat on there and stuff like that. So just because of everything with Cricket Club, I get a lot of people adding me and randoms and that from all around the world that want to talk sports and stuff. So yeah, I'm Dave Swizz on there, but yeah, it's Swizz26, and we can talk more about all things sport and that. Yeah, and it's not even just footy. I think I'm in NFL fantasies and EPL fantasies and whatever. So I seem to get dragged in by more and more people, but that's the great thing about our community and what you guys are doing, what we're doing and stuff like that, because you meet people from all around the country. As I said, catching up with different people, even at footy games, cricket games, and meeting them. And that's what we want to do. We want to talk footy and able to have other people enjoy the game as well. So yeah, feel free, drop a line and we can have a chat.
No, definitely. Alrighty. Well, thanks very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Guys, if you love the content, we've got more team reviews coming out. We've also got our Supercoach stuff. Remember, like, share, and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye.
See you guys.